welcome to the next explainer video from Albert's Hydronic Flow Control. Today I'd like to talk to you about the new FlexiFiller Direct G4 or FlexiFiller Direct. What I want to go through, as this is brand new technology, is I want to compare this with existing products that are on the marketplace. I want to talk about how we've configured this equipment internally, its operating principle, some features and benefits, and then a word about the approval. So when we compare this equipment with the current competition, we see that the fluid flow through the unit is almost identical. So the technology, the understanding, the level of backflow protection that comes from this equipment, we've taken that as being the blueprint and then we've enhanced it. So we've paid very close attention to making sure that we've got flow limiting within the unit. So not only flow limiting the water that goes into the sealed system, but also limiting the ability, should anything go wrong, heaven forbid, limit the ability of the mains to drain. So the focus is very much on protecting the network, protecting the system, and monitoring everything adequately and appropriately within the unit itself. Now, when we look at the FlexiFiller Direct, the internal configuration, we have custom manifolds that include the double check valve assemblies, both on the inlet and outlet of the unit, but also we've incorporated flow limiting items in there as well to make sure that we cannot discharge mains water at greater than 14 litres a minute. We cannot discharge system water at greater than 14 litres a minute. We've paid close attention to the fact that the automatic air valve that allows air back into the air gap to create the air gap, all automatic air vents can suffer with system debris. So we've made sure that we pipe this away to the visible discharge, the ton dish, so we can see what's happening. So we've streamlined the equipment as much as possible. We've used standard components where we can. We've used very bespoke designed custom components where we've needed to as well. So it's a very harmonized solution that we've come up with here. And all of it deliberately designed to fit behind the Flextronic controller. So we've got minimal space and footprint being used on the wall. So if we consider the functionality that we've added and we compare this with our chief competitor, we've added in a Legionella cycle. So the Legionella cycle is there to drain the dead leg from the mains water to the unit. And it's not compulsory, it doesn't have to be activated, but it's there where somebody has got concerns in the plant room that there could be an issue. So we've added that in as a feature. We've added in BACnet and Modbus connectivity as standard on the equipment. We've also extended our product to allow us to integrate it into our FlamConnect remote service portal. That means that we are capable of 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, monitoring the telemetry of the equipment. So reporting when there might be a system issue, reporting any water loss. So this information is invaluable for the water authority, the building owner, the maintenance company, and we have that functionality. As an extra, we can add in the gateway allowing that monitoring. We have only one volt-free contact in here for traditional alarm monitoring. And we've gone for one simply because we've already added in the BACnet and the Modbus connectivity. The test ports that we have on the check valves, fully compliant with the EN standard. You can service this whilst it's still connected. So we've paid close attention to, we can isolate it, take the controller off, hang it on part of the bracket itself so that the unit can be worked on in situ. We've piped the automatic air vent to drain. we've made it so that the automatic air vent itself is completely removable, so it becomes a serviceable part if needed. We've paid very close attention to making sure that the controller has a walk-through feature for the first commissioning. So it asks you what size expansion vessel is on the system. It asks you what kind of pressure you want. It's very intuitive and easy to use. And we've paid very close attention to the pressure specifications. So we've rated the whole unit suitable for PN10, but there's a maximum inlet pressure on the mains allowable of 6 bar. And as a result of that, a maximum pressure or top-up pressure to your system of 5.7 bar. So let's go through the operating principle in a bit more detail. When we first supply the product, there's no water in it, it's not connected. We have an inlet solenoid valve which is normally closed, and we have a drain solenoid valve which is normally open. So the internals of the unit are always vented to drain. As we move into image 2, we're connecting the inlet to the mains supply, and the water will fill through the double check valve, through the flow limiting valve, until it gets to the inlet solenoid valve, which is still closed and stops. When we want to do a filling or a top-up operation, what happens first is the controller will close the drain solenoid. It then, a second later, opens the inlet solenoid, creating a temporary bridge between the mains inlet water and the sealed system. So water follows the path of from the mains, through the double check valve, through the flow limiting valve, through the inlet solenoid valve, through the normally empty air gap chamber, through the drain solenoid, through a double check valve, through a flow limiter, and into your system. So when this happens, there's a significant amount of backflow protection in effect at that point. There are 2 double check valves providing that level of protection. When the system pressure has been achieved, what then happens is the drain solenoid valve, well, actually, first, the inlet solenoid valve closes, and then a second later, the drain solenoid opens. And what this does in conjunction with the automatic air vent is drains the air gap chamber. That very small volume of water is discharged to drain through the tundish, the visible discharge device. So let's talk about the features and benefits of the FlexiFiller Direct G4. Not only have we got a flow limiter to protect the main supply, so the inlet to the unit itself, we've also got the flow limiter to prevent a critical problem with the sealed system discharging to drain. So we're making sure that we're not discharging water from the system or the mains too quickly in the event of a fault. Not that we're expecting a fault. We're using approved solenoid valves. So independently approved and verified by a UK test house. These solenoid valves, this valve arrangement, has an established track record. We've also been very careful to put into the firmware of the product that the mains inlet pressure must always be at least 0.3 bar higher than the system pressure that we're trying to achieve. Now, this is to make sure that the equipment works properly and that there is no risk of backflow, that the backflow protection devices are able to work. And on that, we've made sure that the backflow protection valves, the double check valves, are verifiable double check valves to EN 13959. And what's important about that verifiable nature is that the test port is accessible and also complies to that standard. We've made sure that the backflow protection valves are either side of a self-venting air gap, an air brake. It's connected to drain, so when that drain solenoid defaults to normally open, the air gap will vent to drain, passing through the tundish where it can be visibly seen as water discharge. We have a programmable alarm contact that we can configure for either high pressure, low pressure, both. We can configure it for a low pressure warning, high pressure warning, an equipment fault. In doing this, we have full flexibility of this fault-free contact. We've also been very careful in our development to include some additional features. That includes a calculated water usage log with preset limits for excessive usage. So we have a cumulative counter, how much water has been used since the equipment was turned on, how much water is being used for top-up on an individual occurrence. And also, we log on screen how much top-up has occurred in the last 28 days. So we're providing a wealth of information to the installer, householder, building owner, facilities management. We also program it so that if there is an excessive top-up frequency, this can be triggered as an alarm to say that there's a system leak. We have a recognized fill command function within the unit so that it bypasses any maximum run timers that have been set during setup, just while the system is being filled for the first time. Now, what makes it a very Alberts hydronic flow control product is we've added in some of the intelligence and understanding that we have for wider system components. So, for example, we've added in a unique expansion vessel monitoring algorithm. This allows the equipment to advise if the gas charge, the pre-charge in an expansion vessel has become depleted and needs to be reviewed, serviced, inspected. Now, that has a very big knock-on effect to preventing water loss and excessive water usage, because when the gas charge in an expansion vessel has become depleted, what happens is during normal operation, the system pressure will rise, the safety valve will open, and water will be discharged to drain. Not only does that waste water, but it can also affect the build-up of the inhibitor that we may have in the system. The integrity of our system fluid can be affected by unnecessary and excessive top-up. So we want to make sure that we're logging that and advising before it becomes a problem. That becomes a particularly key point. So not only will the equipment warn you the expansion vessel needs to be checked, it will also tell you that the safety valve has lifted, that there has been a discharge to drain. Now, what is also a particular development for us is with the addition of a GSM gateway device, we can connect this equipment to the FlamConnect service portal. That means that we can monitor the equipment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, capturing the operational telemetry of the system and of the equipment, and be at a point where we can advise facilities management, building owner, whoever's responsible, caretaker. They can get the advice that the equipment needs to be, or the system needs to be inspected before it becomes a critical stop. And that is a major step forward with this kind of equipment. And finally, here is the Regulation 4 approval that we obtained with Kiwa. This allows us to be able to install the product everywhere where we have permission. So let's look at the product in a little bit more detail. So it's very compact. We have touch buttons to be able to access the menu, to be able to power it on and off. We have, if we pay close attention to the tundish, we've tried to be especially clever to create a tundish that is suitable for very different sizes of pipe. So one size of pipe pushes in, uses the nut and olive arrangement, and we have an O-ring around the outside to allow a larger pipe to push over. And if the O-ring is moved to the next notch up, then another size pipe is able to be used again. We've paid very, very close attention to the installability if there's such a word, of the product. And so here we see a mounting bracket. So the mounting bracket itself, one screw is the retention, and then the bracket following its wall mounting guide can be installed on the wall, allowing the product to just clip on and then single screw to retain it. So we have a product that's very fast to install, very compact. It's only a one-person install. It's light. We provide flexible hoses with isolation valves. So these must be used with the product. So the flexible hose itself connects to the mains water supply. The flexible hose itself connects to your sealed system. So the use of those flexibles makes installation and retrofit installation very quick and easy to do as well. It's a product that feels right.